Casias Media.
What Melissa Left, a limited series by Weird True Crime. Over the past 3 episodes, we've introduced you to Melissa Casias, devoted mother, daughter, and sister.
We walked through the events of June 26th, 2025, the day she disappeared. We broke down her last known movements, the searches, the investigation failures, and the theories.
We also dove into questionable comments made in recorded phone calls and conversations, pushback from her husband, Mark, who continuously stated Melissa left on her own, and cleared up misinformation about Melissa's relationship with her family. And we told you that new information was coming. Today, we're sharing it.
Everything we share in this episode comes directly from official New Mexico State Police reports, documented evidence, recorded conversations, and statements from Melissa's family, the private investigator, and their newly retained attorney. I'm Amber.
And I'm Gina, and this is What Melissa Left, Episode 4, The Call.
We've talked about Mark's behavior after Melissa disappeared, but there are details from the days leading up to June 26th that we haven't shared yet because we wanted to make sure they were verified before we put them out into the world. Well, we're ready now.
In the days before Melissa disappeared, Mark was reportedly asking neighbors whether they had security cameras. Multiple neighbors. He wanted to know where the cameras were pointed and what they could see.
Think about what we've already told you. Mark pointed Officer Bencomo directly to a neighbor's cameras the night Melissa was reported missing. Cameras that, it turned out, showed nothing. If you already knew which cameras pointed where, you would also know which ones didn't capture what you didn't want captured.
The neighbor's camera did show Melissa arriving home around 1:20 p.m. on June 26th, after taking Sierra lunch at the John Dunn shops, where she was seen on surveillance footage at 12:57 p.m.
Melissa was never seen on the neighbor's camera after 1:20 p.m. If she had left to walk down Highway 518, as previously claimed, the camera would have picked her up.
There's more. A neighbor came forward and stated they heard a loud scream coming from the Casias home around 1:45 p.m. on the day Melissa disappeared. It's worth noting that multiple neighbors had reported hearing yelling and arguing from the home on a fairly regular basis, so this wasn't an unfamiliar sound coming from that address.
But this was different. This wasn't raised voices during an argument. This was described as a woman's scream. And notably, no other sounds were reported in that same window. No gunshots, no loud bangs, just a scream.
As we discussed in earlier episodes, Melissa's phone was reset and disconnected from iCloud at 1:38 p.m., approximately 20 minutes after she would have arrived home from the John Dunn shops, and within the same window that the neighbor heard a woman scream.
So let's think about that. A scream coming from inside that house, and within the same window, a phone being wiped clean of every photo, every text, every contact. Those two things happening at the same time, in the same location, are not the actions of someone who is calm and in control. That is the picture of someone in a very frightening situation.
And if someone was in that house with Melissa, if something happened there, then the phone reset stops being a mystery and starts being an answer. Because otherwise, we're supposed to believe that Melissa took her daughter lunch, sent her a text, and then within minutes decided to permanently erase years of photos of Sierra for no apparent reason. That doesn't hold.
What also doesn't hold is the idea that nothing happened in that house. We have a neighbor who heard a woman scream at 1:45 p.m. We have a phone wiped clean within that same window, and we have blood inside the home that tested presumptive-positive. No gunshot was reported, no loud bang, just a scream, a wiped phone, and blood. When you put those three things together, the question isn't whether something happened in that house. The question is what and who else was there.
And here's what makes that question even harder to ignore. On the night Melissa was reported missing, Mark told Officer Bencomo, completely unprompted, that, quote, if there was a struggle at any point, there would have been several items in the house that would have been knocked over, end quote. No one asked him about a struggle. No one suggested one. He offered that on his own.
And then, in a recorded phone call with Trudy 2 days later, he went even further. We want to play you a clip of that call because we think it speaks for itself.
The cops could, and then I understand that they said there was some sort of a drop of blood in here. Bullshit. There's no blood in here. And besides,
Okay, good.
The time frame does not match. The only time she could have been hurt by me because I was identified in Los Alamos.
You were at work. Mark.
Watch, Trudy, let me say something so maybe you'll understand this.
Yes.
It's so simple. If there was a drop of blood, if there was blood in this house, that means I would have had to have hurt Melissa before we left to work, right? Correct? Because
No.
they determined that's why they let me out over there when they had me over there. I was up in Los Alamos. Obviously, they determined everything.
Yes. No, I know you were at work.
Exactly. Melissa was fine at 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yes, I know
was in Los
that.
Alamos.
You were at
Are you
work.
guys thinking about that?
No, I know
The
that.
officer, they could have had a gallon of blood on the floor and it's
No.
still relevant to Melissa.
Right. No. And it makes sense, like what you're saying, because there was nothing turned over in the house. That's what you said. I know you were at work. Joseph was there when you got home from work. We know you were at Los Alamos.
Yeah,
Absolutely, we know that.
There's no way I could have hauled ass to Taos, hurt her. And
Oh, no.
What stands out to me is that Trudy tells him multiple times that she knows he was at work. She's not accusing him of anything, and he still cannot stop talking about the time frame and why he couldn't have hurt Melissa. He is the one who keeps bringing it up.
And that last line, there's no way I could have hauled ass to Taos, hurt her, and then get back. That scenario came from him, not from Trudy. So make of that what you will.
And now, knowing that Melissa was found deceased on May 28, 2026, 11 months after she disappeared, none of these details exist in a vacuum anymore. The scream, the blood, the reset phones, the unprompted statement to police, and the recorded call. Taken together, they paint a picture of someone who did not leave that house willingly or safely. And there is a piece of evidence we will discuss in the next episode that makes all of this even more significant.
There's one more thing from that evening. At approximately 8 p.m., while police were at the house and Melissa's family was arriving, a witness reported seeing Mark creeping around the yard in an area with a hole in the fence.
It could have an innocent explanation. People do strange things when they're stressed or overwhelmed. Maybe he was looking for something he thought would be helpful to the investigation. But the witness who reported it found the behavior odd enough to come forward. And given everything else we've just told you, odd behavior in that yard on that night is something we think deserves to be on the record.
We also need to revisit the question of where Mark was on June 26th. We told you in episode 1 that the Lanel investigator could not verify how Mark arrived at work that morning, that his badge hadn't been scanned since June 23rd, and that the license plate readers never picked up Melissa's car on its usual route.
Melissa's car was seen on surveillance camera at the security booth that morning, but it wasn't seen going through the gates. We also shared that there were witness statements we couldn't share yet. Well, we can share one now.
A witness who works with Mark daily has come forward and formally stated that Mark was not at work on June 26th. This person has provided that statement to the New Mexico State Police. It has not been made public until now. And the same source says Mark allegedly had a history of time card fraud, clocking in remotely via his phone while not actually being on site.
So, the alibi that Mark has been referencing in every recorded phone call and every conversation with family, the alibi that the New Mexico State Police has been working around, might not hold. That is a significant development.
There's something else that allegedly happened on June 26, 2025, that makes us question the work alibi. According to our sources, a witness came forward in early May with information that brought new life to this investigation.
This person stated that on June 26, 2025, the day Melissa disappeared, they were riding in a truck with a man named Ray Cortez when Mark called. Ray answered the call on the truck's speakers.
According to this witness, Mark said, quote, "I hurt her. I don't know what to do." End quote.
Ray then took the call off speaker, finished the conversation, and hung up. When the call ended, Ray turned to the witness and said, and we're paraphrasing here, "We are the only two people who heard that. If this gets out, I'll know exactly who said something."
Since coming forward, this witness has allegedly been threatened by members of their own family in an attempt to keep them quiet. The New Mexico State Police are aware of this tip and have spoken to those involved.
On the morning of June 1st, 2026, less than 48 hours after the identity of Melissa's remains was confirmed, Ray showed up uninvited at Melissa's parents' home. The conversation was recorded.
Ray claimed he was there to offer condolences and clear his name. According to Ray, he never received a call from Mark on June 26th and had no idea what happened to Melissa.
I even told state police, I told them, hey, look, I said, I did not talk to Mark. Mark did not call me. I said, I don't even talk to Mark on a daily basis. I don't talk to him on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis, nothing like that.
According to Ray, he only knew Melissa as an acquaintance, though he had done a hunt for her and Mark in Black Lake at some point.
Ray had also spoken with the family's private investigator multiple times by phone prior to this visit, conversations that were recorded. So when he told the Mondragon family that he didn't know how to reach the investigator, that was at odds with what the records show, and the Mondragons knew that.
We're not going to tell you what to make of that inconsistency. There may be an explanation, but it is worth noting, along with the witness statement about the alleged call on June 26, that Ray's account of his involvement in this case has not been consistent.
What his connection to this case ultimately means is something law enforcement will need to determine. We'll continue to follow it.
The question of Ray's involvement in Melissa's case brings up another important topic when it comes to the New Mexico State Police. We've talked before about the missteps and failures in this investigation. We want to break that down because the family and their legal team have specific issues they discussed with us.
Jasmine spent significant time early in this case cross-referencing it against the FBI's No Body Homicide Law Enforcement Bulletin, a checklist of how these cases should be investigated.
And look, she's not a lawyer or an investigator. She's a woman who was terrified for her aunt and started doing her own research to figure out what should be happening and why it wasn't. We talked to her about it, and we think you should hear her describe it herself.
From the beginning, my family and I knew something was wrong, right? It was so out of character for Melissa to disappear. We know that she would never leave her loved ones, especially not her daughter. And so to us, that meant something was wrong. Like, this was not a normal thing for her. We knew something was wrong. And of course, we were kind of fighting against this narrative that she had simply walked away. She had left with another man. All of the, different variations of this lie that were being told pretty broadly within the Taos community. And so we were kind of fighting against that. This is not the first time that I've brought up that no body homicide article on the FBI's website, but I read through that article that the FBI had posted on their website, in their law enforcement bulletin, trying to give tips and training to local law enforcement on how to handle specific types of cases. And when I read through that article, I was like, okay, this checks that box, this checks that box, this checks that box. We have reason to be concerned that this might actually be a homicide and we just haven't found her, right? And that was pretty early on. There were so many signs and so many clues and so many items that you could kind of just check off the checklist to say that this falls into that category.
She then tracked down a federal agent named Tad Dobias, who specializes in exactly this type of case, and who offered to consult for free if New Mexico State Police invited him in. Jasmine personally made the introduction to the captain and lieutenant. New Mexico State Police never invited him and instead continued to cite short staffing.
In hindsight, this was a huge missed opportunity for the New Mexico State Police. Melissa's body was found in Carson National Forest, which is federal land. Here's the family's lawyer, David Adams, with more on this.
The fact that she was found on federal land should have led to some type of nexus, to some type of federal law enforcement being involved. And so, given that there was an opportunity really early on, it didn't happen, and then a crime scene investigation happens and they were, it's a little heartbreaking because of the jurisdictional nightmare that may or may not be created because of where she was found. And so, yeah, you wish, that would have been a great opportunity to have somebody involved to do some more forensic analysis regarding, phones, cameras, and all these kind of things that you're really looking for very specific evidence in. There are some things that have been discovered in this case that if the hair doesn't stand up in the back of your neck, then you don't have any compassion.
Just think about how much more information could have been gathered early on if a federal agent had been involved. I know there's no point in playing the should've, could've, would've game now. It doesn't change anything. But we've seen this pattern before in unsolved cases.
Right. Like the Eric Nellums case. His murder has been sitting unsolved for over 20 years. His sister found an independent group of investigators who were willing to go into the police station, sign NDAs, whatever it took, to help the police in Alabama solve his case. But they refused. Why?
It's hard to say, especially in an older case like Eric's. After 20 years, what's the harm in bringing in outside resources? As far as Melissa's case goes, the family was told more than once that New Mexico State Police had limited resources. Jasmine told us it took months for investigators to review recordings and witness statements the family had handed directly to them. So it's hard to understand why they would turn down the opportunity for another set of eyes.
And Tad Dobias wasn't the only resource turned away. Texas EquiSearch, a search and recovery organization with significant experience in cases like this, was willing to come to New Mexico to help. All they needed was an official invitation from the New Mexico State Police. The responding agent said they didn't know where to send them.
Which, to be fair, could be an honest response in a case where the search area wasn't clearly defined. But Texas EquiSearch has experience building search parameters from exactly the kind of information New Mexico State Police already had about Melissa's last known whereabouts. Rather than turning down the offer, reaching out to them to figure out how to work together would have cost nothing.
Here's another frustrating example of what happens when departments don't prioritize outside help. Multiple people called the New Mexico State Police tip line with information about Melissa's case and received no callback. One woman called 6 times. 6 times. Within 20 minutes of David Adams announcing his involvement on social media, a witness who had been ignored by New Mexico State Police reached out to his office directly and gave a full statement. That tells you everything you need to know about where the breakdowns are.
Jasmine personally coordinated search and rescue efforts because no one else was doing it. The lead agent didn't show up to the initial scheduled meeting. Trudy had to beg to be interviewed. These are not small oversights. These are systemic failures in a case involving a missing woman who is now confirmed dead.
We can't say that a more thorough investigation would have changed the outcome for Melissa, but she might have been found sooner. Her family might have more answers about what happened on June 26, 2025, and they might have been able to spend more of this past year grieving instead of doing so much of the investigative work themselves.
It's so unreal to not be able to grieve your loved one because there's still like this possibility that they're out there. But then if they're actually out there and they left, then you're kind of left with this like hurt that they would do this to your family, but you don't believe that they would do this to your family. And so you know something is wrong, but you don't know for sure. And it's just you go back and forth, and it's just agonizing. And we went through that for 11 months. And then, of course, we got the most devastating news that it was confirmed she's no longer with us. But I can't help but wonder if this investigation had been taken more seriously from the beginning, if it wouldn't have been 11 months of agony. Maybe it would have only been 6 months, 4 months, 3 months. And not that that would take away the pain, but I think it has just been a horrible thing for my family to go through, no matter what, throughout this entire investigation, and then to be disappointed by the response from law enforcement. It just kind of compounds all of the hurt, you know, like there's hurt, there's anger, there's frustration, there's helplessness, there's so many emotions that I don't think that humans are meant to feel. Like, it's not normal.
11 months of agony. That's what Jasmine said. And she's right. No family should have to go through that. No family should have to do the investigative work themselves, fight against a false narrative, beg to be interviewed, and then wait 11 months to find out their loved one is gone. That is a failure. And it's a failure that Melissa's family is determined to make sure doesn't happen to another family.
Which brings us to someone who is helping make sure of that. You've already heard a clip from him in this episode, but we want to formally introduce a new member of the Mondragon team. The family has retained an attorney, David Adams of Parnall Adams. He shares every tip or piece of evidence with law enforcement, even when he has concerns about how the criminal investigation is being handled.
David has been careful to say that his criticism is about investigative standards and systemic gaps, not specific individuals. He has worked with many excellent agents and does not want to damage the family's working relationship with New Mexico State Police because they still need that relationship. But he has been direct about what he sees as a recurring pattern. Crimes against women are under-resourced. Agencies sometimes let ego get in the way of accepting outside help, and the failure to properly investigate domestic violence and assault creates a pipeline that ends in cases exactly like this one.
If you have information about Melissa's case and you have tried the New Mexico State Police tip line without success, please contact Parnall Adams directly. We'll link their information in the show notes. The family is routing public tips there now, and it is already producing results.
In our next episode, we're going to tell you about the day Melissa was found, where she was, and what was there, and what the evidence tells us and doesn't tell us about what happened to her. That episode is available now. We'll see you there. Until next time, stay safe.
And make good choices. Bye.
Bye.